Welcome, everybody. Good evening. This is your host, Ricky, with Chronicles of Mysterious Universe. And I will be bringing on Mr. JB333 here in just a moment. Hi there, Mr. JB333.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, just dealing with some last minute child issues.
Mm.
That's
Oh,
why I barely made the 7 o'clock time, but I still made it.
you good?
Oh yeah, we're good.
All right. Well, here we go. Another episode. And I sound good? Coming through good on audio here?
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds like no feedback, no nonsense on my end.
All right. Perfect. So, what do we got to talk about tonight?
I figured I should have mentioned this earlier, but it's been a rough day. Anyway, so I figured because a lot of the people that have been watching this probably have not watched or listened to the Blog Talk Radio version, so they may or may not have any idea what we're even talking about when it comes to like Annunaki.
Good point.
I figured we could like summarize some of the stuff that we've been talking about over the many episodes and maybe give people an idea of like maybe how we got to this point, etc.
Okay. Sounds good.
That seemed like the proper path to take today.
Let's do it.
That's what impulse has taken me. At least I'm trying to do letting my impulses and letting my inner guides tell me which way to go here.
That's the best way to go.
It's been pretty crazy, man, in the world. Like, especially for someone freaking empathic and whatnot, man. The world is it's insane.
You're telling me.
And I think more and more and more, like this kind of conversations are very important because it's bringing light to the fact there's a whole hell of a lot of manipulation going on in this world, and like we're being turned on one another. I see it every single day.
Yeah.
And there's always that people always ask why. Why would we be getting turned on each other? Why?
Why not?
Exactly. It's the divide and conquer agenda, man.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, and I have a friend again, like a long time ago. I would tell him all this stuff, and I'm like, man, they're doing all this stuff, and he's like, well, what are we gonna do about it? And it never really dawned on me until the other day what he was talking about. It's like it's not enough to know what's going on. It is what are you going to do about it, right?
Right.
And doing videos like this and raising awareness on subjects like this, the more and more people you touch, that's enough. That is doing something, right?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
It's pretty that's the stuff that's been going through my head. I know it's kind of a lot at once, but
Right there with you.
Quick summarization of my brain and my meditations at night. For those that don't know, like our whole title of this thing, the Annunaki Chronicles. For those that don't know who the Anunnaki are, it goes all the way back to like the beginning of mankind when you research this subject, and it's all written down on these clay tablets that have been uncovered over the years, and like they date back like 2,000, 3,000 years before the Bible. They're using carbon dating, so these are legitimate dates. Like they're not manufactured, they're not made up. And it wasn't until like what I think the late 80s, early 90s that they started actually deciphering these things because they were just on collector shelves. And as they started to like really decipher them, they're like, oh my goodness, there's so much information about human history here that it's mind-boggling. And so yeah, that's I was when we started doing this, I was rereading the whole Slave Species to the Gods book, and again, I know I've mentioned it before, but it's a solid book if you really want to know like a lot of it's pretty much a summary of all the tablets of all the Zechariah Sitchin's work. And a lot of people again think that he's the only one that translated these things, and of course that would give him the power to control the narrative, right? However, it's been now cross-referenced and translated by many people, and now they have a consensus. There's like minor changes as far as translations go. But honestly, it's still probably the greatest collection of knowledge that I've been able to see.
Definitely some truth to it.
And whether or not it's not true, it's still a compelling story. There's
Yeah.
a lot of compelling evidence, regardless. And that man I was mentioning, I was going to talk to you about it yesterday, but of course, life gets me sidetracked.
I
But
hear you.
since I've been rereading the Law of One series, like as they're talking about history on this planet, it actually, what I thought was like it was a whole different thing. It actually correlates with the Sumerian timeline more than I thought it did.
Hmm.
And I should have mentioned it to you about earlier because that is a big thing. Like, so the I'll just start because otherwise it's going to confuse everybody. Anyway, so I guess the timeline starts about, for those that don't know who the Anunnaki are, they were said to come to this planet from a different planet. So a spacefaring race, which in all honesty is not that far fetched when you think of us right now getting ready to send people to Mars, etc. Like, is it really that far fetched that an advanced race from, a different star system even could come here and do these things? No.
Hmm.
um, Absolutely not. And I mean, again, in like the whole UFO phenomenon, if even one of the sightings are true, even one, that means there's something going on major that they're not telling us. And again, the government has now confirmed that the UFO UAP stuff is real.
Indeed.
Um, so again, that means that somebody possesses advanced technology and is using this advanced technology, whether it be humans, whether it be extraterrestrials, whatever it is.
Somebody.
So that again, I use that to point the fact that it does sound far fetched, right?
Hmm.
Because to the normal person, like the idea of aliens coming from another planet and then genetically seeding a whole race of people is crazy. But anyway, so apparently, I guess according to a quick summary of this is I know I've told you this before, but it's like about 500,000 of our years ago, or 450,000 is what they say. They came to our planet in search of a mineral called gold. I mean, we all know gold, a rare metal. Humans have been obsessed with it forever, and really no logical reason as to why. We use it for currency now, but you can actually trace gold mining, like the South African gold mines, all the way back to, because the cradle of civilization is considered South Africa, and gold
Hmm.
mining can actually be traced back to the earliest civilizations, and there's no explanation as to why we would have been mining gold at those times. Like, there is no logical reason. Like, and first of all, how do we just learn how to mine gold out of ore? Like, it's not an easy process.
And why?
Exactly. Why? There's the one theory. It's called the alluvial gold theory, that people found gold in the rivers. And they're like, oh, shiny. Let's pick it all up. But again, it does not explain how we first knew that the gold was in the ground, and then we're able to mine it. That is that's a big mystery. And of course, there's no explanation for it. But if you read the Sumerian tablets, there's a perfect explanation for all of that. They came here. We're trying to mine gold to send back to their planet because apparently, um, they figured out they could powderize it and suspend it into their atmosphere to help patch up like their ozone later. They were having the similar problems like we are on this planet with our ozone and deteriorating climate, etc.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at like NASA, they use actually gold on their spaceship windows because it repels the radiation from the sun. At least that's what
Uh,
I'm told.
it said gold is very dense and heavy, but it's still easily moldable.
Right. Um, that's just honestly, man. There's so much data in that in that series that it's mind blowing. So apparently, again, they came here. We're doing, work for many thousands of years, building civilization, building cities and whatnot. They got tired of working. Their people got tired of working in these mines, so they decided ultimately that they were going to create a worker, like a clone slave worker.
Yeah.
So according to their words, they took the already existing hominid, which is Homo erectus, and they essentially ended up, through a bunch of random tests and failures, they eventually ended up, combining their own DNA with the Homo erectus, and were able to create the what they called the Adamu. Again, that's where the name Adam comes from. Is they originally called it the Adamu. So they were apparently trying to create a primitive worker that was just intelligent enough to use the tools and obey commands, but not enough to, rise up against them, essentially. And I like they're showing pictures of that, and I love it. It's so cool that you could do that, man. Mm-hmm. I think is this from Gaia?
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, if you don't have yeah, dude. It's especially for someone beginning the seeking process, going to like the Gaia thing is crazy good because it's like a wealth of data. Like I think that's probably from the Ancient Civilization show.
Yeah.
Or not. Maybe it is. But anyway, that's like the if you watch Ancient Aliens, Ancient Civilizations is the non-mainstream version of it. So it's the same show, but they go like further into depth. Like, hey, yeah, it was really them.
Yeah. Versus,
Ancient Aliens was be like, what if it was them? You know what I mean? Just a different phrase.
Yeah. It's definitely really good stuff to watch.
It really is, man. And after, they essentially, again, created this slave worker, you were really successful at it. Then they started essentially producing as many as they possibly could. The process was too slow the way they were doing it, so they allowed they created a female version and allowed them to mate. That apparently was not in the plans of the person who was in control of the earth. So it was two brothers that came down. One was in control of the earth. One was in control of the mining operations, essentially. So he's like the second in command. The second in command wanted to teach humans all kinds of stuff that he loved his creation. He's the one that created him, and the other one did not. He wanted subservient slaves, and that creates this epic story that's gone through the history of humanity. The God versus devil story. Of course, again, we are summarizing tons and tons and thousands of years worth of data here because, I guess the story goes really, really in depth. It would take, you're going to have to read this stuff yourself. There's no way I'm going to sit here and explain every single last bit of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy and fantastic, but when you read this and then go and read the Bible, then the Bible starts to make a lot of sense in the beginning because, in Genesis in the beginning, you have the creation of the universe and everything is 3 pages, I think it is. When I counted it last time and I was trying to summarize it, when you read the Sumerian tablets, this is crazy amounts of data and it actually makes sense. The line, go let us create man in our image. People, consider that the Holy Trinity, God, the Holy Spirit, etc. But there's no actual proof. That's just what people think it is. So if you look at it from the perspective of these beings creating us, then it makes a whole lot more sense. Let's create them in our image, the image of the Annunaki.
In our image.
Right. And that's what the Annunaki actually means. Those two those two from heaven came, or something like that. They pronounce it in a weird way.
Yeah.
But yeah, heaven essentially is outer space in all these descriptions. That's what it's really referring to, the heavens, outer space.
That's why they say heaven is in the sky.
Right. Now, again, I'm not going to try and sit here and say that heaven, I don't believe heaven exists. I think our understanding of heaven is incorrect.
Yeah.
I think you have to look at what we have in this universe as dimensional. It's we're currently residing here in the third dimension, our third dimension bodies. Our planet may not be, but we ourselves, in this chemical physical vehicle, as the law of one would call it, reside in third density, or the third dimension.
Yes.
So heaven, the dimension of love, it would be considered the fourth dimension. That's what the dimension is. This is the dimension of what do they call it? Is it the dimension of choice? All right, I'm gonna have to reread that one in a minute. But anyway, yeah, it's.
That makes sense.
It's you're choosing. So this is the area, they call it the battleground. This is the choice, the ultimate thing. The power, the free will that you have in this dimension is choice. in every situation you encounter, in everything, you have a choice on which path to take. And, like, I'm going to give an example of like what Jesus was teaching. He would teach the service to others path. Like, that's the path you would want to take. Or you can ultimately choose to be self-serving. So there's more than one path you can take in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But like, ultimately in the whole story of it, man, it's really, really fascinating to read about it. And like, again, when I was reading The Law of One on the way to work the other day, I was listening to it. Don't judge me. I wasn't reading while driving. But like, there were some things, like a couple passages that were said, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that coincides perfectly with the timeline that they got there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, the reason why our planet is so like messed up and so disharmonized is that realistically, none of us are really from here. And it's hard to grasp, it's hard to accept, but eventually I think science, as we start to recombine science and spirituality, we're going to come to this realization that like none of us are really from here.
Yeah, no doubt. Like it says here, I brought up a screenshot. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, all the wild animals, and over all of the creatures that move along the ground."
Right. And unfortunately, people have used that very line to be like, oh yeah, we have the authority, we can kill all the animals we want, we can do this and that, and destroy the environment, etc. And like, that was never meant to be the case. And they look at like the Georgia Guidestones thing, like living in harmony with nature and stuff, as evil, and it's mind-blowing to me. Like, we worship an invisible God but destroy a visible nature, which really is God itself. Like, the planet itself is alive. Like, we need to learn to live in symbiosis with the planet. It's obvious. Like, we need it to exist as much as we like to think we don't.
But that's the sad part. Most of these people who want to, clear cut the Amazon forest, they're just thinking about in the moment to make the money, because they don't care what happens when they're dead and gone.
And honestly, most of the Amazon rainforest is being cleared for livestock, for producing, for which companies, which industry? The fast food industry. Most of the beef comes from South America that we eat in the United States. That is verifiable. And it's crazy, man. Like, you don't like, I've mentioned it before about like the planet exists in a symbiotic form. Like, if we destroy one area, it's going to throw off not only the weather, it's going to throw off the weather patterns of the whole planet.
Yeah.
So like, we are, carbon and all that stuff is obviously adding to climate change. However, I think more or less it's our destruction of the planet that's doing it. And that's the thing, I wish they would address. It's not enough to just go to switch to electric cars and everybody go buy that.
Well, even that does so much damage as well. I mean, where to get resources for the batteries? They got to do all these mines. Yeah. And
that is one of the common arguments that I see. And in all honesty, people are not grasping, like, if we replace every single car with an electric car, that is, we have to make batteries for all that. And that is going to destroy a lot of resources, a lot of ground. And that's another thing, people are not grasping, because these companies are selling them this idea that this is going to save the earth. Because, of course, you have to buy one of their vehicles. Of course, they're going to tell you that this is the answer. And, these politicians have these, these companies are in their pockets. It's obvious, man. There's people in the oil pockets. There's people in the green initiative pockets. Like, it's all really just another way of controlling us.
Well, what's interesting is that even the Annunaki created us to mine gold in a more beneficial way, but now we do it in a more, financial gain situation, or, just out of pure greed.
Right. And that came, I think, towards the, in the beginning, like, we were just the primitive workers. And as, the story of the Bible, when they started talking about the sons of God saw the daughters of men and saw that they were beautiful and started having sex with them, etc. That was when, these Anunnaki were all toiling, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, these females are attractive, let's do this. And then they created genetic hybrids, essentially. They were creating what they call them, the Nephilim, I guess you could say. But
The giants, yeah.
the heroes of old, they call them. So like Hercules, stuff like that. Like these,
Demigods.
yeah, essentially demigods, because we have an incomplete genome. They did not. So thus, it created this elite group, and they probably still rule over us to this day.
Probably.
And these secret societies and whatnot that they say exist, whether you want to believe it or not, they can be traced back all the way according, the gods of Eden. I was mentioning on the other one, they've traced these certain secret societies all the way back to the proposed Garden of Eden or whatever. One of the most fascinating things that I've ever came across with this is definitely a controversial thing, and I love it because people will message me about it. But I believe, and many others believe, that the Garden of Eden script is flipped. So the devil in that story is actually the good guy, and God was the bad guy, because the devil was trying to teach humanity knowledge to get them out, rise them up out of their binds, their slavery.
Yeah.
And God did not want them out of that. And if you, again, read the Bible from that perspective in the beginning, you'll start to see that this was not a being that wanted us to be our own selves. They wanted us to be subservient to God for whatever reason. Because he created us, and he's going to choose what we do and don't do, like the whole Tower of Babel story. For no other reason than we just decided we're going to build a tower. We're going to come down and destroy the tower and scatter us all over the earth.
It's a control thing, yeah.
Absolutely a control thing. And again, like a lot of people I've talked about, and I reiterate the fact that I firmly believe in God, but the God that this is talking about is more like an angry child, an angry human, than it is anything. And that's exactly what it is. If you read, more and more into the Sumerian texts, whether it's makes sense to a lot of people or not, like, to me, like, it all adds up.
Yeah.
Because it's like full, like the beginning parts of the Bible, literally full of death. The Old Testament, like whole cities being wiped out because of disobedience, and like
Of one person's sin made him destroy the entire villages and civilizations.
right.
Like, he didn't care about the innocent people who weren't even involved directly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If that were to happen today, if an entire city was nuked, and they're like, it was done in the name of God, people would look at it like, oh my God, that's crazy. But there's millions or hundreds of examples in the Bible, and people are like, well, they should have listened. They should have converted. They should have accepted.
It's fear tactics. I mean, that's all I can say.
And yeah, that comes to the question is why? Why is there still this control scheme? Why are we still being manipulated? Because, I mean, like, people are still scared to this day. Like, I mean, I work with lots of different people from lots of different cultures, and I love to talk to people about, their belief systems. And, like, I work with this Muslim woman, and I was talking to her a little bit about it. And it's, they're very, very strict on their beliefs on, it's crazy, man. Especially the women. The women are way more restricted than the men. And, like, I want to ask sometimes, it's like, so, I mean, you don't have to accept it, but you do. Why? And it's out of fear. I mean, it's fear of God, like you're going to go to hell or whatever. And you honestly don't know that. You live your whole life in fear of going somewhere you don't even know exists, ultimately.
You're told it does, but how would you know?
Right. I don't think that you're gonna, if you're gonna go to hell because the simple little things you do, it's like, by all means, that's where I'm gonna go then, because that's obviously where the cool people are gonna be.
That's where everybody's gonna go.
Yeah, essentially.
It's like heaven's an exclusive club,
Yeah, and it's only it's like, you'll have the Christian heaven, you'll have the Muslim heaven, you'll have the Mormon heaven, and they're all different. They're all described differently. At least according to these religions. Obviously, they're describing the same thing. In reality, it's just a different interpretation. But, ultimately, they really believe that they're going to these specific places. And everybody can't be right. It's not logical, man.
It's like you said, it's an interpretation. Like, you see the sky, you see a city floating in the sky, you get to describe it differently to somebody with a different faith or perception of it.
Exactly, man. Um, I don't know. That's one of the reasons like that I've fallen in love with like the Law of One series so much is because again, it iterates the unimportance of what it is that you believe. It is the seeking that is what matters. Like it's seeking something higher than yourself. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That'll give you that connection with the divine. You can get rid of all the other nonsense that goes with the religious beliefs, and just the seeking of God is all that you need. Um, that's why I like it so much. It's not trying to tell you to do this or that. Not at all. As a matter of fact, they refuse to do it every time. Like they try to ask this source of information to give them guidance on something, they won't do it because it's a violation of free will. And what is free will, right?
Is it an illusion or is it actually a thing? I mean,
Yeah, the idea, that's definitely a debate. So like, if there is a lot of people in the Christian community, for example, believe that there is an exact plan. Everything that you have is planned out, and that means that free will doesn't exist because it can't. If everything you're doing is completely planned out, then you have no choice. You have no free will. How could you?
then it's fate. You know?
Right. Um, and ultimately maybe it is, maybe we're in a retelling of a story that we don't even know, but we have no way of knowing till we die. um
We
but
just
what
have
they
no
say
idea.
what they say in like the Law of One is that your free will, like if you're given a situation, your free will is always the choice that you make to every situation, every hard event that you get. That's the choice, your choice. That's the dimension that we live in. um So, like, I do believe personally that there are events in your experience that you choose beforehand. So, we're on a mission to learn to heal our karma from past experiences. By past experiences, I mean past incarnations. I don't believe that we do one incarnation and we're going to heaven.
There's no way.
Um,
There's no way.
no, there just isn't, man. Um, there's too much evidence suggesting that we've done this again and we're going to keep doing it. Energy cannot be destroyed. Like the idea that you live 70 years or even less than that and go to heaven or hell is stupid. You have that long to choose whether or not you're gonna go to heaven or hell for eternity. Man,
Eternity, people don't grasp it. It's literally forever, according to
right,
Christian beliefs.
right. And like, where did this idea even come from? Ultimately, like, where did the idea of like Satan and the being a little devil horn figure in hell, like poking at you with a pitchfork, come from? It comes from people's minds. It comes from thousands of different pastors and preachers telling you that this is going to happen if you don't do this. God's going to slap you around, and I do believe that you do get slapped around a little bit, but
Probably.
it's up to you to notice that. I def so, and this goes along with your belief. So there's people at different levels of this kind of experience and belief, and based on that is what you're going to see in your day-to-day experience. Like me, I firmly believe in all this, so I start to notice every single coincidence that happens to me. Like, oh my god, I'm messing up again, going back into old habits. I don't know. Again, the reason why all this is important is because, like, I firmly believe that we were, like, the Anunnaki put these systems that we experience today in place to control us, ultimately, to keep us in line and to keep us from evolving, if you will. Um, like in the Law of One series, they talk about the way that a species or gets to the next level of experience, like which would be like us going to heaven, essentially ascending, is for everybody to come together as one and realize that we are all one people.
Hmm.
Ultimately, that's what it is. That's the whole Law of One, is that everything in this universe is one. So everything is God experiencing itself ultimately. And that resonates with me on a different levels. I mean, that's a lot. Even the Freemasons believe that. There's other secret societies that believe that. And honestly, if they are believing that, it's that's something you should pay attention to, um, because it's like forbidden knowledge or whatever.
But why is it forbidden?
Because if I mean, for example, even in this country, if all of us were to come together and realize we're being manipulated. Everybody. There's no one that can stand in our way. There's nothing, no system, no government, no military that can stand in the way of all the people coming together. So the elite, the power structure of the world will lose all the power. And that's the game. They have to maintain power because that is their belief system. They need power and control over others. That is what's considered the negative path, the path of control, the self-serving path. At least according to Law of One. So that's the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, right? Yeah, I don't know. I forgot where I was going to go with that. But yeah, I firmly believe, again, that like all of this has been put in place. Like they're using the same tactics over and over again to manipulate us and turning, the Democrats against the Republicans and vice versa. And it's all absolute nonsense, every last bit of it.
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense. And there's a reason it doesn't make any sense. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to be confused as hell right now. I lost you, sir. I'm here by myself.
Nah, I'm here. I just got you on full screen.
Full screen. Spilling my tea all over myself here.
I had to close the window because the dogs are starting to bark, and I don't want that showing up in our audio. Awfully rude.
Yeah, it definitely should. It's okay. It's part of the experience. I'm sure my kids will be running out here pretty quickly. But back on the before I get off on a tangent here. I'm going through some of my notes and see if there's some more important areas to cover on that one. And again, if anybody wants to read the Slave Species to the Gods book, I recommend that one. Or you can just read Zechariah Sitchin's work, but there's a lot of those books and only one of the Slave Species to the Gods books. So, I mean, there's, I think, 8 of the Zechariah Sitchin's books, and it's crazy, man. So he goes into detail about, because as he's translating these stuff, like, he goes and researches that against mythology, right? Like, all these old tales about wars and stuff like that, they describe their gods as fighting alongside them. Like, they were there with them. And, the Sumerian tablets correlate that stuff. Like, these advanced beings, like the Bhagavad Gita is another book, another spiritual book, quote unquote, that literally mentions, them fighting alongside their gods and their gods, warring in sky chariots and all kinds of stuff, dude. Using a weapon charged with the force of 1,000 suns or something along those lines, which
and
obviously
magic,
right?
That's what they call it, but it could be advanced technology they don't know of. Missiles,
absolutely.
Nukes, laser beams.
Yeah, one of the common ideas on magic stuff is like, if you were to go back in time with a cell phone, people would think you were magic, right? Just
if
technology.
You went back to even the 70s with this, what would they even think? Just the 70s. That's only, feeling old now, 50 years ago.
Yeah, right. And when we've been going through this, like the blog talk radio stuff and going down and researching different paths, like we've come across, other civilizations like Atlantis, Lemuria, and the more you research down these paths, the more you realize, like, there's a ton of evidence for all that. So we only have stories from 5,000-6,000 BC is when they say civilization really first started, and that's it. That's what we got. Like,
and before that was
caveman stuff, right? Like
dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaur. That's nuts stuff right there. To think, these jumps that made, like, we went from nothing, cave dwelling people to building monuments that still exist today is, again, that's my, one of my, every time I'm starting to doubt all this information, I go right back to the pyramids. That's, again, anytime I'm doubting, I'm like, yeah, those were definitely built by advanced beings, 100% without a doubt.
I agree. There's no other way they could have done something like that with even today's technology. They've already admitted it.
Apparently, there's a good documentary on Graham Hancock that Graham Hancock does on Netflix right now. Somebody was telling me to watch it, but he says he doesn't really give anything new, because if you've read the Fingerprints of the Gods book and whatnot. Like, there's a ton of information, a ton of research has gone into these ancient civilizations. Like, a good example of, the incorrect nature of our dating system is the Sphinx. So the Sphinx has weather erosion, water erosion, and that could only was much, much older than we're told. And, the Egyptian authorities don't want, they're like, nope, that's BS and blah, but it's there. You can't deny the fact that there was weather erosion, which puts it back to like 11,000 BC.
Easily. I mean, even they say the original Sphinx wasn't actually a lion, and over time it was carved into a human face.
Yeah, like the original, it was a lion. Yep, that's built in the age of Leo, which put it back to like 13,000 years or something like that, 13,000 BC. Yeah, man, it's the more you research into this, and like these are really scholarly folks that have gone and done the research on this stuff and like actually been there, actually seen these monuments, and yet we only get to trust the one mainstream view. Why is that? It's drilled into our minds that this is the case, taught in school, even like this is what happened, this is how we built them, even though it's obviously just ludicrous, man, that we were able to build those that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what people choose to believe, and it's easier, honestly, to believe that than it is to believe that human history is a lie.
Well, I think of it like this: like, let's say you have a small kid, and you put them in a room, and you never let them leave, because just see outside of that door is something scary, or just something like hell, for example, and whatever you teach them in their mind is the truth. And that's all they know. That's how it is with us.
Have you ever heard of Plato's allegory of the cave?
Yes.
So the idea that people, these people live in a cave and all they see of the world is the shadows that are cast from the fire beyond the wall. And when they leave the cave, eventually they're rescued. They can't handle the world as it is. So they were like, I'm going to go back to viewing, my cave on the wall here. That's obviously the short version of it. But that's what the way I view most people is like they're more comfortable. That's what it is, the comfort zone.
That they're safe, yeah.
Better safe than sorry, I don't know. Like, you don't want to be labeled as a crazy conspiracy theorist for questioning the stuff around you when, again, I reiterate over and over again, conspiracies keep being proven true. It's only a conspiracy theory if there's no real evidence to back it up. And a lot of times these conspiracy theories have tons and tons of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not all of them are correct. Thinking that way is stupid, but that's what they do. So the people putting out misinformation on purpose will try to convince you that like it's all or nothing. Everything. Ever notice that? It's always all or nothing. Like the stuff with Kanye West and all them, it's all or nothing. He's completely anti-Semitic or he's not completely anti-Semitic. Like, I don't know, man.
It's all a big distraction.
It really is. It's all, to keep us fighting amongst each other so we can't see them raking in the billions of dollars of our money, and why we go to work and keep this system afloat. That is, that's the problem, is the system that we live in is built on the back of the lowest paid worker ultimately. And
indeed.
And that was one of the only things I was watching what Dave Chappelle talk about Donald Trump, and he actually mentioned that he liked him for this one speech, because when he was coming out in that debate against Hillary, he said this whole system is rigged. And they were like, how do you know it's rigged? Because I use it. And what he's talking about is the tax code. So the people in the know how to work the tax code to where they don't pay taxes. So the idea of taxing the rich is ignorance, because we don't understand the tax code. These people do. Like, there's so many things that can be written off that you don't know about. And
yeah.
So again, the taxes and everything only applies to us. The laws only apply to us. And that is what, if everybody were to come together and see that, the game is over. All it takes for us is to stand up.
And there's a reason that's just not taught in school. They don't want us to know.
No, we're taught in the school essentially to become workers. We're to be workers in the factory. They want, like George Carlin said, they want you just smart enough to run the machines, but and pay your taxes and all that, but not smart enough to realize you're being screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But more and more people are realizing what's really going on. And the control scheme goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, 100%. Like, this is all, the longest con in history, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keeping you scared of something. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist, because again, I believe in God, but the version that is being, talked about isn't correct. It's not. And I'm not afraid to say that. It is just the version that we worship and fear that's going to come out and squash us like an ant is not correct. We need to be finding the true answer to it. And that's, the fact that the universe itself is God. Everything is.
Yeah.
You and me are God talking to each other. And the more you realize that, the more you accept that, the more you start to see what Jesus himself was talking about. He was talking about, looking at somebody and loving them no matter what. Even if you're mad, angry, like, love that person as they are you. Because they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It reminds me of this movie I saw years ago called The Communion. You ever seen that one?
I've not seen The Communion.
It's based on a true story about this guy who was abducted by aliens. And Christopher Walken actually plays in this movie. And there's a scene where he's in the spaceship. And I don't know exactly if they clone him or not, but there's another him. And they're communicating. He's like, I am you and you are me. You are the dream and I'm the dreamer. This is a very interesting quote.
You are the dream and I'm the dreamer. So that reminds me of like the David Wilcock book, Awakening the Dream. So if you get into the Gnostic traditions and the ancient religious, they view the world and the universe that we live in as a dream or an illusion, whatever you want to call it. There's many different names. You can call it a virtual reality. It could be likened onto a computer.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, you are a dream within a dream. That's like the Big Bang Theory. In the beginning, you can even quote it from the Bible. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. So what is a word? It's a thought. We're nothing more than a thought. That's what we are. A spark.
So, I mean, it's like to say physical is the illusion, thought's reality. That we talked about in the last show.
It is, man. It really is. And like the Law of One talks about, like, it goes into heavy detail about like your thoughts being actual things. So you think of your scenarios you play out in your head as being nothing, but in reality, they can actually, manifest into things. Like, you could be thinking, man, I really hate this person, or thinking very, very bad things about this person. And like, that actually generates karma. So like, if you're thinking bad things about somebody else, or even thinking, anything like that, it actually creates that in this astral plane or your mental plane, whatever you want to call it. And that's as real there as your hand is here. And again, that's just something that science is starting to realize, is that there's way more going on than just our physical, five senses stuff.
There has to be.
Yeah, there literally has to be, man. It's, again, Nikola Tesla said it best, once we start investigating the non-physical phenomena, we're going to make a lot more progress. And all these scientists that are not out in the mainstream doing this, like, you can look into all this stuff. Look into like the stuff on photons and like the DNA spontaneously moving from a glass to another glass when it's insane. It's impossible according to our understanding of science.
To our understanding, yeah.
Right. And I think that, again, when we were taught from the beginning, we were given just enough knowledge to make crops and make civilization and governments, but not enough to free us. And I think that's more of like the Tower of Babel story, is like, we were getting to a point where we were going to be free from the control, and that was not cool. So we were, separated, essentially, genetically manipulated, so we all had different languages. Whatever happened, who knows? But no matter what story, none of it makes sense. So the Sumerian version doesn't really explain exactly how our languages split. The Bible doesn't explain how God confused our languages. None of it really does.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. Like, when they describe the creation of man in the Sumerian version, it's very, very scientific. Like, there's no way that I mean, this stuff is recorded in clay. There's no way they could have known this stuff unless they were really there. They did it. That makes a whole lot more sense than just spontaneous creation. But I'm not saying that's impossible either.
I mean, power manifestation is a real thing too, but we don't know how limited or if there is any limits to it.
Yeah, there is. I don't think there is any limitations to that. I think the only limitation ultimately is you. It's always the answer is always yourself. Like we are the creators of our own issues, and the ones that with the answer too. Like, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from going out and completely changing your entire life. Just, I mean, anybody can do it, but it's a matter of coming outside of this comfort zone that we exist in day to day that we're scared to come out of, because it's scary, right?
And then you start to question your own sanity. You know, like, how far can we go down this rabbit hole?
Absolutely. And I don't know, man, I get a kick out of researching this kind of stuff because it's stuff that nobody looks at, nobody reads, and to me that's what, you know, drives me besides the fact that I want answers. Like that's the seeking process.
Yeah.
Like the answers that I've been given in my whole life aren't good enough. I don't feel like they are. I don't feel like our history answers are good enough. I don't feel like when I'm in school, man, like learning about all this stuff, like to me it's nonsense. Like I feel like we're getting somebody else's interpretation, and ultimately that's the truth.
Well, I found a clip here I want to show you. It's from that movie, The Communion. It may disturb you because there are grays in it. And I know you have a little bit of...
This one.
Here,
This guy.
But it's still a very good... It's based on a true story.
You would show me one with big rays in it.
Alright, you got it up here. Let's take a look. This is Communion. It's pretty spooky, but it's... You know, Christopher Walken is really good too.
Oh, this is from the 80s, huh?
Yeah, it's old. It's based on a book that he wrote, the guy that had the experiences. I have it on DVD somewhere.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's definitely creepy. Don't watch it by yourself in the dark.
Absolutely not, sir.
Like, I've never read the book, so I don't know how accurate it is to his story. Because we know Hollywood likes to exaggerate things.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Fire in the Sky is nothing like the actual experience the guy had.
Right. Stuff is absolutely fascinating, man. Like, this describes so many UFO encounters. That's crazy.
The bright lights, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Expand. And it supposedly happened in upstate New York. That's basically
Good old 80s stuff.
That you might enjoy that little clip there, because I think your issues with the grays is repressed memories myself, though.
Yeah, man, it's that goes deep. It's been a thing for a long time, man. Like to the point, like I'm gonna give you an example. Like I watched the Fourth Kind movie, and
man.
so in my defense, I had an experience that I still to this day can't explain. You know, the owl from the movie. I know obviously the movie's been proven
Fake,
like a hoax, whatever you want to call it. But
mm-hmm.
however, like when I went on a walk after watching that movie one night, and taking my dog on a walk down this path by my house, and it was like dark and cloudy and all that stuff. And I get all the way to the end, and I start going back, and an owl, I've never seen this kind of behavior before, landed right in the middle of the pathway, like 30 feet in front of me, and like just sat there and stared at me, dude. And I had just watched that, and I'm like, oh dear God. So I panicked and obviously ran because, like, dude, that was, what kind of a coincidence is that? First of all. But, you know, that kind of weird coincidences have happened to me my entire life.
You know I don't believe in coincidences.
Well, yes, quote on, you know, we're talking about coincidences. Like, I always say that because it's easier for the regular person to digest. But, like, I definitely don't believe in coincidences either. I believe that they all mean something. It's something, you know, synchronistic. It could be a message from somebody. It could be anything.
Well, according to Dolores Cannon, when she does her hypnosis, the aliens have the ability to give you false memories to make it easier for you to perceive what you're actually seeing. Like, if you're actually looking at a grave standing there, they're going to change your perception to see an owl, for example, and it's in your subconscious. So you might want to one day get some regression done and see if you can uncover some stuff there.
That makes that story even more messed up, sir. I mean, honestly, man, I was filled with like absolute terror when it happened. Like,
I would be too.
You know, super, super fearful. And like, again, I've had experiences all the way back from when I was a kid. I've seen a lot of stuff, and like, there's a lot of times I have no idea what's real or what's false in these memories, and it's really hard to explain because I suffer from PTSD from when I was a kid. So like, there's so many memories I've had, like, you know, ghost encounters, like seeing demonic entities, seeing smoke filling my bed when I wake up. Like, there's all kinds of things, man. Like, I feel like I've been on I don't know if you want to say like there's like a cosmic battle going on around me for my soul, if you will. And
could be.
It could be, man. And, you know, ultimately it's, again, this world is a choice, and some of us incarnate here. Maybe some of us have incarnated many, many times and are on the, you know, the higher levels, getting ready to go to the next level. And, you know, we are a target. I'm not saying that I'm more advanced than anybody else. I'm just saying that it is a possibility.
The fact that we're at this level already talking about this stuff proves that we're already at a higher level than most people.
Yeah, the idea that, like, again, questioning the world around you is really a step outside of the NPC category, if you will. I love using that.
NPC.
Like, honestly, man, like, again, I think that there's tons of that in this world. Like, you encounter people, like, it's like, I don't know, man. I view the world completely differently than most people.
Me too.
Call me crazy, call me what you want, but, like, again, the world doesn't make any sense. And
it doesn't, especially in the line of work we do, man.
Oh yeah, dude. So that's the thing. Like, that's another reason. I encounter so many people each day. We're talking thousands and thousands of people every day doing our job. And so I get all the different stereotypes, all the different attitudes, all the different belief systems, all the different cultures. And so I see it every single day. And like, I started to see that, like, people are just people. They're doing what they're doing every day. A lot of people are assholes. Some people are, most people are nice, though.
It's interesting because your airport that you're at right now is a lot larger than what I'm currently at. But when I was there, I remember just sitting out there in the food court, just taking a break and watching people. And from time to time, I would see people and look at them like, that person's not human. They look human, but I could feel their energy. They're not human.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, the idea. So the more I focus on the idea of, like, being an empath, the more I feel people's energy. I can tell immediately whether or not I'm going to carry on a conversation with a person or not, because there's some people that are just have really dark energy. Definitely people that are off, man. Like, that they don't. I honestly believe I've encountered a lot of non-human people, and as crazy as that sounds, whatever you want to call it, man. Like, I've seen things, like, especially working at the podium and taking people's tickets, and like seeing, like, I've seen people blink incorrect ways. Like I told you that one time that happened, that blew my mind to the point where, like, man, I almost needed to go home. Like, starting to be like, am I seeing things, or am I, like...
Go ahead and share it with these guys.
Like, the idea, so, like, when people blink normally, this person blinked the other way. And honestly, again, Not
Reptilian?
100% sure if I even believe it, but
Reptilian?
I I do believe that is a possibility, man. I really do. And that does
Because
sound crazy. And again, people lump you into that lizard category. Oh, he believes in the lizard people. But
why not?
I
I
think,
mean, look at us. I believe in. Why not?
yeah, dude, I believe in some crazy stuff. But I think that the possibilities of anything are endless. I think that there's infinite versions of what we experience here. I think there's infinite planets in the universe. I think there's a possibility that there could be, you know, for example, any kind of creature could be conscious in another star system, for example. Like, a grasshopper could attain, consciousness and be 7 foot tall. Like, why couldn't it?
Insectoids,
Like,
yeah. A
why is
giant
it that
praying
only
mantis.
like if apes and all them were able to technically evolve over time, why can't other creatures? Like, that's the thing. It's get that into your head, that it's only the apes that grew, or the whatever you want to call it, apes. There's still apes on this planet. But
Well, but what if even on our planet, insects and animals are actually more conscious than we are, which is why they can live with harmony with the planet, because they're more aware and conscious than we are.
that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Before we jump off here, there's the thing that I came up with the other day. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this because it's I don't know, it's controversial. But so
Do
the
it.
idea of Bigfoot, right? So
Yeah.
in the Law of One, when they talk about they talk about the first entities being transferred from another planet to this planet because they destroyed theirs with bellicose action. So essentially, they blew up their planet, couldn't live there anymore, and that says about 500,000 years ago. And they said, according to them, that they were like the Bigfoot type creatures.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, so when you start to read the Sumerian tablets, they got here about 450,000 years ago. And the creature that they describe as being, we talk about it as Homo erectus, sounds a whole lot like freaking Bigfoot. So, like, I was thinking, man, what if all this time that, we find these skeletons and it's like, this is what we consider our human ancestor, Homo erectus. But what if that's really been Bigfoot this entire time? And
Good point.
I don't know, man. Like, because again, they probably knew that these creatures were here. They found them, and they said they can use their hands, and that's the way it describes in the Lot One theory too. They said that they chose this form to enact their karma, to live out their karma for doing what they did.
Hmm.
And honestly, like the guy I talked to at work that talks about Bigfoot, he says that they're not, the times he's encountered, he says they're very intelligent. They're not what we
I
think.
believe that. I believe they are. I've heard they're psychic. I've heard they're interdimensional.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be. And he said, like, the Law of One says that they exist in the honeycomb parts of there. So like, there's tons and tons of underground passages that we can, that they can go in and out of. So like, that's he says that he believes that they live in like certain caves up in like this area that he goes all the time, and he's been wanting to take me up there, but we don't have the same days off. That's the problem.
I'd go in a
And
heartbeat. Shoot.
man, dude, like I want to, but I'm also at the same time super terrified of that idea. Why is it that I'm terrified? I don't know.
What if I mean, it'd be kind of intimidating to come up to this 10 foot tall,
Dude,
hairy
absolutely not.
creature
No, no,
looking
no.
down at you.
But he
You don't know
says
its
that it's
intention.
he says that the way, the way you go about it is, it's you shouldn't have anything to concern about. That if you're going there for the pure seeking of knowledge, they're going to realize that. If you're going out there to capture them for monetary gain and stuff like that, they're going to try to scare you. They're going to try to make you go away.
Hmm.
And that kind of makes a lot of sense. He's like, that's why he doesn't go out there. He doesn't take cameras. He doesn't take anything like that. He goes out there
For
with
the
just
personal
him. Yep.
experience.
He said he'll go out there and meditate and sit there and just be one with the stars and all that stuff. And like he
Oh, that
says,
sounds nice.
he encounters them almost every single time he's out there. And I believe this dude, man. He's a solid guy. Since absolutely no, I don't believe he's lying at all. Like, I'm generally really good at telling if somebody's lying to me. So
We need to have him on the show one time.
I've been trying to do that. Like, he's like 70 years old, so he goes to sleep at like 4 p.m. because obviously we work stupid schedules. So
Hmm.
like, if I could go to sleep at 4 p.m., I would love to be honest. I
But
would. I would go to
you
sleep
work crazy hours too, though. Yeah.
4:30 in the morning. Yeah. Well, at least I'm on the 4:30 shift now. Thank God. Pretty soon I'll be going to logistics and I'll be not having to deal with passengers. So
Oh, that'd be super. You'd love that.
They're dragging their feet, sir. They're dragging their feet. It's been weeks.
Of course they are.
Weeks.
And I'm trying my best to get back there to Seattle as soon as I can. It might take about 6 more months, but I'm working at it. But I will be back eventually. Then we can do this face to face and not over cameras.
Yes, sir. That would be great. And I hope this was a good, like, kind of intro back into like what we've been talking about with the Annunaki and stuff like that. And again, it doesn't have to be the only subject we have because obviously we can broaden out, branch out. But like,
yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of what we're dealing with on this planet today stems from all of this, and it can be traced back. So I think it's important to keep, referencing it and using this material. And again, I'm going to keep rereading the Law of One and see if I can find, because they mention it dang near directly. They call it a knock. So when I heard that, I was like, there's no doubt in my mind that they're talking about the same stuff. But when they question this group or being or whatever, it's only answering to the specifics of this guy's question. They're not going to give more than what the person was asking for because they're not trying to violate free will.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's mind blowing, dude. And again, this was done in the early 80s. The tablets were not translated till the 90s. So it can't be, that they got their information from that, right?
Right. It's great stuff, though. It's really good stuff.
By the way, I like the picture you did, man. I love how we have the exact same pose, but on different sides. I don't know how you did that or when you did that, but I love it. That's the one, sir.
Yeah, we need a good Facebook picture. Not Facebook. Thumbnail picture.
I like that one a lot. I think you should use it.
Okay.
Use it for all of them, because the other one is terrible of me.
No, it's not.
Makes me look like that dude from Third Rock from the Sun.
Wait, which one?
Third Rock from the Sun, the guy that contacts the big giant head.
Oh, no.
Forgot his name. Dude, that's my show. I love that guy. But in any case, dude, I'm gonna watch that again. That's just hilarious, man.
I mean, it's about aliens.
It was indeed. There's so many things about aliens that we watch on day to day. We don't even think about, like, the Greys. The Greys come up all the time. But like, who are they really? I think we should cover that next.
The Greys? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think, many people call them the Watchers, and like, I don't think they're actually, may not even be actual ETs. They may actually just, be robotic suits or.
I've heard they're engineered.
Right.
They're created for the purpose of communicating with people, but they're not biological to an extent that we are. But I've heard that. I guess we can kind of jump into that during the next show. Extraterrestrials.
Like the Law of One says, there's actually, like, what does it say? 2 types of Greys. One is bioengineered, and one is I don't know. I think the other one are maybe they're real. Who knows? But
well, the ones I encountered astrally were as tall as I was, so they were the tall Greys. So I think there's the small ones, or maybe the tall ones that are real ones. I don't know, but it's a good subject to get into next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can. I've been drinking a lot of this third eye tea to see if I can force myself to lucid dream and astral myself out.
Hey, let me know if it works.
I'm getting there, sir. I'm getting there. Getting there. I'm gonna have these crazy god dreams.
Like I do.
Yes, I'm jelly. Anybody who doesn't know what that means, again, you can actually become conscious or awake in your dream and have essentially be a god, or even travel to distant lands, all sorts of stuff. Leave your body. Yeah. But in any case, I'm out of time here. My kids are trying to bring me out there.
And we'll catch you on the next show then. Thanks for being on tonight.
Of course, sir. Many blessings.
Later.
Oh, I forgot how to leave.
I got you. All right, so we're gonna wrap up that with Josh and I's shows here. I can't talk. I'm tired tonight. I'm getting ready for bed. But anyways, hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, if you're watching here on my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe if you can to help support us. Go ahead and give us a like, leave some comments. Once again, that helps YouTube's algorithm push our video out to more people to make us more visible for them to catch us and watch our shows too. If you couldn't catch it live, you can still watch it on my Facebook or my YouTube channel. It'll be under my videos. Anyways, I did see a comment here. I didn't see it till just now. And the topic of tonight's show is basically just open conversation, continuing on about the the Annunaki and their what they're up to, if they're still here, why we were created, where we come from. And we're going to get more into the extraterrestrial subject next show. Maybe talk about the Greys, the Tall Whites, Palladians, Syrians. I mean, there's tons of supposed civilizations out there teeming with life. So we're going to jump into that and kind of maybe start getting away from just the Anunnaki talk a little bit. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thanks again for watching. Thank you again, Josh, for being on the show. And like I always say, keep your mind open, keep your eyes open, keep exploring the unknown and unexplainable. Until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.